Hi, I'm Allie Rain, and this is my familiar, Cypher. I'm an award-winning fantasy author. My books are called the Necroseem Chronicles. They are about a necromancer whose soul is trapped inside his twin as they go on epic adventures. If you want to learn more, you can go to ellierain.com, or you can go to Barnes & Noble and Amazon for more.
We are Tuatha, and we knew that you would probably request a particular song from us. This is our simple freebird, just for you. I want to tell you about some links that we've got going on. We have a tip jar. You can find that at paypal.me/Tuatha. It's the name of our band, Tuathadea. You can visit us on our website, Tuathadea.com, where you can find all kinds of links, all kinds of pages. You can find our store with our merch and more. Tuathadea.com/the-store-2. You can also find our mailing list on our website and sign up for all kinds of cool information. Visit us on our Patreon, patreon.com/Tuathadea. We really appreciate you once again. Thank you for having us here.
Do you want to make sure your convention isn't a dud? Then contact the CONmods for all of your moderating and consulting needs. We've had the pleasure of working with Sean Schemmel, Adam Baldwin, Matthew Lewis, David Yost, Brian Michael Bendis, and many, many more. Find us at theconmods.com, a proud partner of CONjuration 2020.
Hello, and welcome to Virtual CONjuration 2020. I am Darin Bush. I'm one of the directors of programming here at CONjuration this year and every year so far. You are here for the Double the Dresden and Double 20 panel, and if you're not sure who Dresden is, you might be in the wrong place, but we want you to hang out anyway, because we're going to try and convince you that Dresden is awesome. Before we get started on the hilarity and chaos, I want to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with the very handsome and dashing Gary Mitchell. Introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Hi, my name is Gary Mitchell. I am a writer, reviewer, podcaster, voice actor, and blushing bride to be. You can find me here on the Twitter, and you can find me as the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics track at DragonCon, where we are doing weekly Thursday night panels on our Facebook group. So look for us on Facebook.
Excellent. Thom?
Hello, everyone. My name is Thom DeSimone. I work on a lot of the, a few of the local Atlanta cons. This one and that Darin harangued me into every year, but I love it. It's so I really do enjoy CONjuration. Once we can start up again and be in person, make sure you should. If you haven't been, you should go. But I also work at Jordan Con as director of guest services for our guest authors and artists, as well as I have a YouTube show on dragonmount.com down there in my name. And you can find all my social medias through there. We do, it's called the Watt Community Show, where we talk mostly about the Wheel of Time, but, you know, we do go into other fantasy literature as well.
Excellent. And I'm still, for those of you who somehow don't know, I'm Darin Bush. I'm the professor here at CONjuration. I am also involved in a lot of local Atlanta science fiction and fantasy conventions throughout the year, but CONjuration is the big one for me. This is my favorite of all of them. No offense to Thom and Gary. This is kind of turned into an Atlanta convention dignitary panel, which I'm fine with. We can have fun with that. But the real point, the real reason we're here, but I'm sorry, before we get into the panel, let me remind everybody, attendees, panelists, that we're still doing the House Cup. We're still giving out house points. So if we get some interesting comments in the live chat, we will certainly shout out. We've got somebody monitoring those shout outs, and we'll make sure that the wizards and witches get their house points that we're awarding to them. Speaking of wizards and witches, this is the Dresden Files panel. I really, one of the advantages of being a programming director is I get to go, we're going to talk about Dresden, because Dresden's awesome. I shouldn't have to work too hard to sell this. No. So let's start with the facts. Somehow Jim Butcher is releasing not one but 2 Dresden Files books this year, or I should say released 2 Dresden Files books this year, which is great. I don't know. I don't really think of Harry Dresden as being into numerology, but numbers are important in magic. So it is 2020. It is the 20th anniversary of Stormfront, and there are 2 books new this year. So, Thom, I'm going to start with you here. Are you a fan of Dresden?
A little bit. Just a smidge.
Poquito.
So someone actually, Claire, someone just said she hasn't read the books yet. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. And if you haven't read the books, a quick idea of what they are is it's an urban fantasy, takes place in modern day Chicago. Mm-hmm. And for me, the thing that I really like about it, and it's usually what draws me to a lot of the urban fantasy, is the different takes on real world mythology and the interactions with the supernatural. So like the Dresden Files has a really interesting way they handle like what they refer to as the white god. So like, you know, the Christian God and angels and stuff like that, demons, and then other deities like Native American deities and Asian and everything all over the place. It's an interesting mesh that how they do things. Plus the supernatural, like vampires and werewolves and fairies and creatures. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very much a kitchen sink kind of urban fantasy, in a good way. So Gary, what about you? You a fan?
I am very much a fan. That actually tags into I saw Jim Butcher at Dragon Con about 6 years ago now. He was talking about one of his favorite things about writing the series was that he could just go with, oh, well, the fairies in the last book were like this, but these fairies actually come from this pantheon over here, so that's why they're like this. So he could basically do whatever he wanted. But yeah, I've been a fan since I think it was the 5th book had just come out. And I had some friends who were like, no, this stuff is really good. And I was like, okay. So I tried Stormfront and I was like, this is good. And just each book gets better and better as Jim finds his legs with the series and he starts building in the meta plot, which almost ends this year. the power vacuum. I mean, we'll get into that, I think, in a minute. The main meta plot is still going, but something kicks off in the 4th books that's still paying off now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before we get too far into this, I have to admit I have not read the last 2 books yet. I am way behind.
Well, Darin, the spoilers are coming.
No. So what we're going to do is we're going to try very hard not to spoil Battlegrounds because it's only been out for a month or 2. Oh, okay. But spoilers on Peace Talks, yes, they've expired. That's my own fault, which is not a problem. I approached Jim Butcher's Dresden Files really in the middle. I don't remember exactly where it was that I caught up with him, but at one point, a guy I was working with came into the room where we both sat working on our little computers at our little lab space and everything. And he comes in and he just threw a raggedy copy of Stormfront in my lap and goes, "Read this." I was like, "Yes, sir." And so now, and then of course I read like, I think 11 books in a row before I paused and read anything else significant. It is fabulous. And he does get better as he goes, which you would hope, but he really does.
Storm, a lot of people don't know Stormfront was actually his English lit dissertation in college. So.
And also, I saw an interview with him recently in which he explained that it was his version of arguing with his professor.
Yeah.
And then his professor went, "This'll sell." And he went, "Really?" And yeah, it did. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like his professor told him, like, you should put this, and this in the book. And he was like, "No, these are overworn. No one would ever do this." And he did it to prove that point.
And the rest is history.
to sell the book or the series on some of the people that have said that they haven't read them yet. If you're into audiobooks, or if you want to try to give audiobooks a try, James Marsters, Spike from Buffy.
Yes.
He is the
Spike from Buffy.
narrator. He is the narrator of the books. He is fantastic. Who knew that he was like such a fantastic voice actor? But his voice acting also improves as the book goes on. But that's mainly because the first book and even the second book, we don't get many points of view other than Dresden. So like even when he's talking as the other characters, it's more as Dresden remembering them talking than it is them actively speaking. And that kind of changes a little as the series goes. And he develops a voice, very, very distinctive voice for all the characters. And they're just amazing. Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marster's reading is great. It's great. Go ahead, Gary.
Now, I was going to say, someone in the comments asked, 2 in 1 year, is he actually writing each of these or farming them out? And for anyone who doesn't know, the reason we got 2 books this year is Jim was writing the current book, and it was getting to the point that it was large enough that the publisher basically went, "Let's split this," because it was going to be a Thom, you'll appreciate this. It was getting to be a Robert Jordan level of book size.
Yeah. If you put it together, I think it might be like one of the middle ground Robert Jordan books. Nowhere near Brandon Sanderson, but
no. But still, it was going to become a giant book, and so the publisher said, "Let's split this." So he reworked it, where he tied up a few storyline bits in the first book and moved things to the second book, and in a way, you can kind of tell that it's one book, even when you read it, because the first one does end kind of on a sort of cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's kind of abrupt too.
Yeah, and then the second book is basically one gigantic. The title "Battleground" is appropriate because it's pretty much the fight starts, and then 100 pages from the end of the book, the fight ends.
Yeah. It's very much like the imagine if the Battle of Hogwarts took place over like the city of London, and that is Battleground.
Yeah, or what if the Two Towers book was nothing but Helm's Deep?
Yeah.
So
it's fantastic.
Yeah. So just to sum up really quickly, for those of you who haven't read the books, read the books. There we go. That's my summation. They are really fabulous, and they get better as they go. The other thing is the audiobooks are really some of the best. I would put Marster's reading of Dresden up there with Inglis's reading of The Lord of the Rings, because those audiobooks are incredible. I'd put him up in that category. It's really, really entertaining and enjoyable. I was recently listening to Changes again, just to kind of get back in the mood, and his voice that he does for his landlady during like the fire in his apartment, I was like, what the, where did he get that voice from?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was like
Toot.
Oh yeah. The fairy, the major general of the fairies. Yeah. When he does that voice, it's like, how does he do that?
It's fantastic.
He's really, really good. So what is it about?
I was gonna say, if we're not gonna talk about the most recent book, are we gonna talk just about Harry in general?
Yeah. That was kind of the point of this. This is really a celebration of just the entire Dresden universe and everything, except the TV show, which has not been made. It does not exist.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will actually have to say I watched the TV series first, and that's what got me to read the books. So Harry in my head still sounds like that actor whose name now escapes me.
Isn't his name Blackstone?
Yeah. It's so Harry still looks like and sounds like him to me. And
now, okay,
he's a good Harry. It was just
Yes.
the rest of the show that I had trouble with.
Yeah, I mean, having him cast as Harry was what got me into the show, because I was like, oh yeah, he sounds
and
like
Jim plays Butters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I thought like Claudia Black did a cameo, not a cameo. Claudia Black did in one episode. She was great in that. It just the show.
It's a good entry drug if no one's tried it.
Yeah. It is. The show really was. It missed on so many key points. It was kind of strange. But if the show gets you to read the books, okay, all right, I forgive the show for existing. What I'm really hoping, speaking about the show, is I'm hoping that somebody like Amazon or Netflix will come along and give a real, true, long treatment of the Dresden books, that they'll not only get it right, but that they'll also give it plenty of time.
I could see Jim being more open to doing something in the Dresden universe, less so than he would be to just doing following Harry Dresden's story.
Oh, like a series about the Wardens,
or even the werewolves, or or any pick anyone, really, just literally pick anybody. Summer Court, the Winter Court, when they're on Earth, when they're in the Fae, like everywhere.
Yeah,
and this is something that I've been critical about with urban fantasy as a genre, is this kind of kitchen sink thing that I keep talking about, because Dresden does have werewolves and vampires and it's just everything, just throw in the kitchen sink. But somehow Butcher gets away with it. He does a really good job of making all of these things integrate together. He doesn't explain everything, but he gets away with it really well.
Yep.
I think it's because he gives each faction a thing it's in charge of that makes sense. So there's a reason, like, well, the Winter Court and the werewolves don't really mess with each other because they're working in different circles. So it makes sense. Yeah. And the White Court's off doing this stuff over here, and this is what they care about. And then the White Council is over here doing the things that they care about. So there's a balance. And that's also why, the big meta plot of the war with the Red Court being destroyed makes so much sense, because the world was pretty much stable until Harry came in and kicked the legs out. And then there's the huge power vacuum that the Four More move into. So I think that's why he's able to get away with it. I think because a lot of other urban fantasy authors try to make everybody, we're all together and we're all either at war or we're all buddy, and that doesn't really work.
Mesh very well. The only other one, and if anyone's looking to start a new series or hasn't heard of this one before, the only other one that I enjoy almost as much as I enjoy Dresden is Kevin Hearn Iron Druid series.
I've heard good recommendations on that.
Yeah, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I mean, if you just took the names out of everything and renamed the main character Harry Dresden and sold it as a Dresden book, it would be totally believable.
Yeah. Well, and I also think the other thing he does is, as so many other times I've read urban fantasy, the magic is right there, out in the open. Everybody knows about it. Yeah. There's that one with the lady. I think it's not the one with I forget what supernatural she is. I think she's a witch, but she basically works as a bounty hunter, bail jumper. She's like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but collecting mystic stuff. Yeah. And the world just knows about it and accepts it. And in Harry's world, yes, magic is there, and there are people who know, but most people are doing that. I don't see that.
Yeah. And I like how collectively the supernatural world is terrified of the humans finding out again. They talk about like the dark times when the humans pretty much just hunted down the supernatural, and just because there's just so many of them, they could still overwhelm them and destroy them. Yeah,
a vampire is bad news. A vampire against 150 people with torches and garlic is toast.
I like the fact And I like the fact that Butcher took us to that conversation without any kind of whitewashing on it, because there was a point where he said, well, why do vampires do this? And somebody's answer, I think it was a vampire, was like, why would you kill off your food?
Yeah, that was
It's
that was one of the White Court vampires. I think
it was White Court. Yeah, it's like we would never kill our food supply. It's like, okay, he's honest. At least he's honest. There are moments like that.
The chickens are cattle.
You
don't kill the cattle, you milk the cow.
Yeah, exactly. And they were very cold and clear about that. I like how the White Council is very straightforward about, no, we'll kill whoever we want to make the world work the way we want it to.
Yeah.
Like I've always seen the White Council as not the good guys.
No.
Well, that's the thing I really like about the Dresden Files. There is no clear-cut good guys. There isn't. Everyone is the good guys, except for the Black Court, maybe, and the Fomor. But like everyone in their own way is the good guys. Everyone is upholding something very important, like integral to the life and existence. And how they do it is completely necessary in the way they're doing it, no matter what side of the coin you fall on.
Yeah, even the Winter Court, which is the Dark Fae, for people who haven't read the books, basically all the malicious Fae have a purpose, a very necessary purpose. It's very much the dark is not evil, good is not light is not good.
Everyone operates in a gray area, and it comes down to the people. Whether and by people I mean a fairy, a vampire, a werewolf, an ogre, a troll. It comes down to the individual, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah, and I love the incredible sophistication, the aristocratic kind of tone of a lot of these things that normally we would consider to be kind of like evil creatures. The Winter Queen and the Summer Queen, the Goblin. I forget. I think it's King.
The Goblin King.
The Earl
Goblin
King.
King. Thank you. The Earl King.
Earl King.
Every time he's on stage, I just love it because he's over there going, well, yes, of course, I've considered every application, and my slavering assistants will now eat your liver. It's just there's these rules and there's manners, and he's like, well, within the guidelines of protocol, within the Accords, right? Which is I heard somebody call it the Geneva Convention of the Never Never. Right, that makes sense. But the Earl King is just sitting there going, well, I followed the rules and I've been very polite and I've fed and watered you, and now I'm going to kill you because you broke my rules. And it's just wonderful to see kind of that real world absolute power corrupting, but also a lot of his absolute powers are very self-aware, and they have a sense of humor about it.
And they have a set of rules that they have to follow.
All of the super, and it ties. So for anyone that's ever played, tabletop RPGs, which I know you guys have, but any of the people in our group here, there is a Dresden Files tabletop, and it uses not a D20 system, but a fate system, which goes perfectly in line with the Dresden universe. So like the supernatural creatures are, like you were saying, they're bound by a set of rules. They can't make a choice. They have an innate nature, and they have to operate within that nature, or their magic or powers just cease to be. Some of them are physically unable to act otherwise. For Molly is the perfect example of that. When she tries to sleep, she is the maiden in the Winter Court. That's her title, the maiden. So she's a virgin, and she can never not be a virgin. And her mantle of the lady of the Winter Court actually fought to stop her from having sex because she can't while she is the lady of the Winter Court, and almost killed somebody because of it, because she didn't know that would happen, and it's nothing that she could control. So within the RPG system, if you build a character that's too powerful, too supernatural, you actually lose control of the character, and it becomes an NPC, because at that point it's too bound by its innate nature, its supernatural presence, that it can't act without.
Interesting.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments in peace talks is when someone calls on Harry's role as the Winter Knight, and he feels that twist in his chest of the mantle making him have to do something. He's like, oh, So that's what that feels like.
Yep.
He's done it dozens of times to other Fae in the books leading up to this point. I love that moment.
And there's a big moment for that in Battlegrounds, which I won't spoil right now, but there's a huge moment that he realized where he's just like, wait a second, where he realizes that he's doing something and it's his mantle that's doing it. And it wasn't him actively trying to do anything. He's so good at giving you things that you expected to be coming. Like, it's like, oh, I know this is probably going to happen, but you don't notice it's happening until it's happened already. And then you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's masterful, because I want to call back to, I think it's in Cold Days where we're getting, because the entire book series is from Harry's point of view. It's like Harry is sitting down across from us telling us what's happened.
Yeah.
And midway through that book, we suddenly realize Harry's been an unreliable narrator even to himself, as he realizes that the Winter Court had cut him off from using his most common attack, the fire. And he suddenly, and one of the other characters finally brings that to his attention, and suddenly he sees. And I thought that was a brilliant moment that I didn't even pick up on until the other character said something. And then I was like, whoa, that's a great writer.
Yep. One of the other things that goes back to the mantle discussion is a Knight of the Cross who's an agnostic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which,
one of my favorite characters. I love
Sasha. It's so clever. It's so clever that he's like, what? I can do my job. I don't have to believe in him. I just go do my job.
And like someone will say something about God and he'll just like interject maybe or something like, thank God, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, there's a series by itself right there.
The Knights of the Cross.
I would so love to read the adventures of the Knights of the Cross.
2,500 years of Knights of the Cross. Pick anybody you
want.
Charlemagne.
Okay, geek moment. I have to geek out for just a second. Lightsaber.
Yes.
Oh my God.
There are moments.
He's a fan.
Yeah. Every great book has at least one what I like to call the F yeah moment.
Yep.
Where something happens and you go, yeah. And that book had two of them. Yep. That one when the handle bounces into Butter's hands and that lightsaber pops out.
He said, I got chills. Just got chills. Just happened. When you said that.
Yeah. And the scene earlier in that book when Uriel gives Michael the power and he steps up and kicks the gate off of his front lawn and it shoots across and Nicodemus' shadow starts going, oh God!
Son of a bitch!
That was just... That's
Michael's such a really cool character too, because he's not supernatural at all. I mean, does he have abilities from probably granted through the sword? Maybe, but he's still just a vanilla human. And Nicodemus Arcleon is terrified of him. Like, that's fantastic.
Yes.
One of the most powerful, evil, supernatural beings in the world.
Yeah.
And he's terrified of Michael.
And in Peace Talks, one of the only creatures that Mab and Odin and other huge supernatural beings mention might be one of the only people that can injure the big bad in Peace Talks, who comes out.
Yeah, I think this comes back to one of Butcher's themes that comes out through almost all of the Dresden books, which is that it is our choices that give us power. Yeah. There are some powers that come innately. There are some abilities that are part of the makeup of the whatever kind of vampire you are or whatever kind of fae you are. But ultimately, the universe as a whole is controlled by intention and will and character and personality and belief. Harry is able to repel vampires with his belief, not in the cross specifically, as in a lot of vampire traditions, but his belief's energy repels vampires. So, which is nice, because that means that everyone is capable of that power.
Yep.
Right. It opens the door to every person to be able to essentially repel vampires, among other things. The other example I'm thinking of is all the threshold stuff. Yeah, thresholds are incredibly important in Dresden.
Yep.
And that means that your feeling at home is a power. Your intention to exist in a space has power over the supernatural entities.
Yep.
And they have to respect it.
And the more you turn your home, the more you turn where you live into a home to you, makes your threshold stronger. There's so many, and I've probably talked about this almost on every panel that we've been on, except maybe the Simpsons panel. Was the thing that draws me to the fantasy is the different, especially to books and video games and movies and stuff, are differences in the magic systems, interesting magic systems, and Dresden has a little bit of everything. There's D&D style throwing fireballs, and there's ritual magic with symbology and herbs and potion making. It's so good.
Yeah, one of my favorites is one of the short stories he does from Thomas's point of view, where he talks about that, where Harry makes a big deal about magic and his life and all this, and he's like, magic is it's a system. It's a system. If you know how to work the system, you can do magic. He's like, any idiot can learn how to do magic. Harry overblows it.
Yeah. But Gary, that's a great point, because that transitions to one of my favorite things about the Dresden Files is Dresden is the narrator, but everybody around him knows that he thinks he's the narrator. I mean, Murphy and Michael and, Charity, and I mean, everyone's willing to knock him off his pedestal.
Yep.
Fort Hill and just everybody, they're in a constant state of giving him grief about just existing and being himself. And I'm not talking about the bad guys hating on him. I'm talking about the good guys are all sitting around going, Harry, what are you doing?
Harry, would you talk to us, Harry?
Yeah. There are many moments in several of the books where I'm just screaming at the page going, Harry, just tell somebody what's going on. Get a second opinion.
Or just talk to somebody about the way you feel, so you stop being so angsty.
Another thing I love about the books is the way the scope widens, because you start out, the series is, supernatural, a wizard, private eye, Philip Marlowe as wizard.
Yep.
And the first book is fairly straightforward, very noir, very, point and click magic or urban fantasy. But and the second book, it grows bigger. And then, like I said, it's at that fourth book that the world kicks open, Summer Night. Yep. And we start getting more with the courts. We'd seen a little bit here, we'd seen a bit there. And just from every book from there on after, I just love the way he's naturally expanded the world. And that the way we see more and more things. And just like every time he adds a little bit more, and it's just like, just give me.
Yeah. And he accidentally falls into some very important spaces in the Never Never. And you're just kind of sitting there going, so Jim needs us to learn something about this realm in the Never Never. So here we go. Yeah. Dresden just ends up there, and he runs into people, and we get to find out how that part of it works.
Yep.
And I'm making fun of it, but he does it very well.
He does.
He does it very organically. I don't ever remember a moment saying to myself, why did he go in there?
Yeah.
It's always important.
He teaches us about everything in such a masterful way, without having it to just be exposition of pages of just explanations. It's always organic within the story, and he does it so well.
And the magic system. Go ahead.
And he does it in such a great conversational style. The only person I can compare him to, and this is a positive, is Stephen King, where you're reading it and I inhale these books. And it's like I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to somebody talk to me. Absolutely.
I mean, it is. You can imagine that the way he explains how magic works to Molly is not that different from what he's telling us in the books. It is conversational. One of my favorite magic systems that I've run into in any literature is taking a plastic sports bottle and putting a magic potion in it.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, okay, you have to have these 5 different elements that have to come together, and they represent the elements in your mind. So in order to do this, I have a little bit of cat hair that I got off the floor, because to me it means this thing it needs to mean. You're like, so is cat hair the spell component? No, it's just it's what Harry needs. Right, it's Harry. That's what it is. Yeah. But then he goes over to he's got a cardboard box full of $2 Sports Authority sports bottles, and goes, all right, give me a plastic sports bottle, magic potion that I worked on for 6 hours, put the top on that, let's go save the world. It's like, what?
It's got Coca-Cola in it, and coffee sometimes one of them had.
Oh yeah. So it's like why wouldn't you put it in a squeeze bottle? Why wouldn't you put it in a plastic sports bottle?
Yeah, and he does this faux Latin, like for fuego for fireball, and flickus bickus to turn on the light all the candles, and it's in either Peace Talks or Battleground where he actually mentions in passing basically of it needs to be a word that isn't English that I know what it represents, and that becomes a magic word.
Yeah, he when he's teaching, I forgot which book. It's so hard for me to dissect the books, especially if it's been a while since I've read them, or if it's been a while since the book came out. It's like one big story in my head. But whichever one where he's training the wardens out in the desert before the Gators come in, so he mentions it then too, like that it doesn't matter what you say; it has to have meaning to you to represent the spell. And I've always really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Again, I really like the fact that he's made it the intention. If Harry really truly believes that those 5 spell components work in that potion works.
Yep. Yeah. Intention and consequence is a huge theme throughout the entire Dresden Files.
Oh yeah. Oh goodness gracious! Consequence drives so much of this.
One of the things I wish he would bring back, which he kind of dropped, I think, after about the 2nd or 3rd book, is the importance of names. Because especially in the 1st book, he bargains with a demon to get information by giving up one of his names, his true name. And he's got 3, 4 middle names.
Harry, Blackstone, Copperfield, Dresden.
Yeah.
Right.
So he gives one of them up, but then
that's his whole name.
Yeah. And then somewhere starting around the 3rd, 4th book, that kind of went away.
Real quick before we keep going, William Perry just asked if we were going to post this later. These are going to be available on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. My understanding is that these will be available for watching after the convention's over. At some point, once we get to catch our breath and get a chance to do such things. That is my understanding. That's the intention. So thank you, William, for the question.
Yes.
We're glad you're here at all. But yes, there's a part in Changes where forget exactly who it was. I think it was the Lananshi, who basically is angry at Harry about he said something snarky, duh. And she's and she called him by all of his names, and that's it. He didn't say anything about, I knew I was in trouble because she knows all of my names and she pronounced it exactly correct. None of that. It was not in there. So if you remember that from the first few books, then you're going, but he didn't point to it at all at that moment. So
because I think a theory of mine for the longest time is we're going to find out that that's not Harry's full name. Yeah. Harry has his name is different than what we've known this entire time. And
it's actually Harrison.
He's been giving even us the incorrect name.
Okay. So guys,
I also saw him at a reading one time when what was the one before Peace Talks? Skin Game had just come out.
Yeah, there we go.
And I saw him. He was doing a book tour, and someone asked him about Toot Toot and how Toot Toot was getting, more prominent in the books. And he was like, he and Jim said, "Did you notice he's also getting bigger?"
Yep.
And did you notice that as he's getting bigger, his name's getting longer?
And he's getting smarter and more powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Yep. I had not heard about this.
Well, I want to really in Battleground.
Yeah.
I want to really quickly shout out to Lori Jarrett's comment about the strong females. Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, Susan Rodriguez is fabulous, but she's definitely not the only one. I mean, almost all of them are just fabulous. And I love Molly's character. Murphy is awesome. I love Molly's character. Okay, guys, so I hate to do this, but we've actually almost run out of time here. We got a couple of minutes left. So let me do this. First of all, let me tell the audience, if you guys want more Dresden Files conversations at future CONjurations, please let the heads know. Give us feedback. Let us know you want more Dresden in the future, because we do, for sure. Before we pay the bills, guys, is there a, I hate to ask the what's your favorite questions, but is there a moment from the Dresden books that just makes you want to go, as we said earlier, an F yeah moment? What's one that we haven't covered yet, Gary?
Come back to me.
Okay, I can go first if you want. Thom, you got one?
I mean, when he went into Hades' vault, that was. I mean, when they noticed what was in there, and then when Hades, like, stopped time and took Dresden aside, and then Dresden realized what was happening, and like had a collectively like shat his pants, and was getting ready to try to fight Hades at the same time.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic scene. That whole scene is, oh man, I really want to see that on a screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thinking about it, I have to go with riding Sue.
Yeah.
In, I think it's Deadbeat.
Yep.
When.
Well, like Gary, you gotta tell people who Sue is.
So he's fighting a bunch of necromancers. And the way necromancy works in the Dresden books is the longer something has been dead, the more powerful it is. So if you can resurrect somebody that's 300 years old, they're stronger than someone who was dead yesterday. And it's also illegal in the laws of magic to resurrect people. Harry is going up against 5 powerful necromancers, and he's like gotten hold of one of their books. And so he's like trapped in the Chicago Museum of Natural History, and he's like, I've got an idea. And he basically sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex at the Chicago Museum of Natural History. He resurrects. She's how old?
Yeah.
He proceeds
a couple of 65 million years.
He proceeds to ride her with one of the Knights of the Cross swords through Chicago.
With Butters playing polka. With one of those like one-man band machines on the back of Sue, because you need to play music to have I wanted to, before I forget, because my ADD and just will make me forget. In that book, right before that scene happens, he's fighting one of the Denarians, and this is when we find out. This is the major foreshadow that Butters is a Knight of the Cross. It happens in this book, in this scene. Harry thinks, holy crap, one of the Denarians is here. Where are the Knights of the Cross? One always shows up to help me when this happens, and the person that shows up, Butters. Butters is the one that shows up.
Something else I hadn't thought of. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, that was great foreshadowing.
Yeah. So let me before I forget, I meant to specifically say, let's give 5 house points to Lori Jarrett for the strong female comment. I really appreciate that. One of my favorite F yeah moments from the entire thing is when the Lananshi turns them all into dogs.
Yes.
And suddenly Mouse can be clearly understood by all of them. And he says something that I will not repeat specifically in a during the middle of the day panel at CONjuration, but just one word of dialogue, and it completely summed up Mouse's character beautifully in that moment where she had just turned them all into dogs.
Yeah.
So, okay, guys, we're quickly crashing on the time here. Let me go ahead and let's get the bills paid. Thom, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at dragonmount.com. If you go there, I do the YouTube show, so you can navigate through that, find my social medias and stuff like that. But I want to real quick give a shout out to all the guys that are working on like the background here. We have 2 guys that have been doing all of our panels, and anytime something gets highlighted on the screen or you see one of our pictures moving around, that's them back there doing that, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely they are. Gary, where can people disagree with you online?
You may disagree with me here on the Twitter at Gary_Mitchell. That is Mitchell with 1 L. And yes, Star Trek fans, it is my real name. And you can find me at DragonCon's American Sci-Fi Classics track on the Facebook. We have a YouTube page, but if you go to Facebook and Facebook/groups/DragonCon American Sci-Fi Classics, or just search for us, you'll find us there. And I look forward to seeing you on our panels. And Darin actually shows up on a few of them, and I got to get you on some too, Thom.
I'm totally.
Yeah.
down.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, guys, if you're looking for me online, my short stories, science fiction and fantasy short stories, are available on my Amazon Kindle authors page under Darin M. Bush. So, at this point, guys, unfortunately,
Dresden Con 2021.
Dresden Con.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk. All right, guys, say goodbye. Thank you, Virtual Conjuration. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.